Hello. Welcome to the InfraTalk Podcast brought to you by Infrastructure Ventures. Come listen in as we talk with policy experts on how we can advance the use of innovative technologies in the infrastructure and transportation industry. Why? Because we know we can do better. So sit back or walk the dog, go for a run, or grab a cup of coffee and join us for this episode of the InfraTalk Podcast.
Hello, I'm Greg Nadeau, host of the InfraTalk Podcast. Today, I'd like to share with you a conversation with Shanté Hastings, Deputy Secretary and Chief Engineer at the Delaware Department of Transportation. Shanté has played a pivotal role in positioning DelDOT as a national leader in the implementation of e-ticketing and as co-chair of the AASHTO Innovation Initiative. Listen in as we discuss how technology is revolutionizing project delivery. So, Madam Deputy Secretary, now you're Deputy Secretary of DelDOT and Chief Engineer.
Yes.
Which is a little unusual. So the scope of your responsibilities are rather broad.
Yes, they are.
Your history at DelDOT, 22 years, first job out of school, rising to Deputy Secretary and Chief Engineer. Can you sort of tell me what that journey was like and the role you're playing today?
Sure, happy to. So I actually interned for DelDOT the summer before my senior year at University of Delaware in construction. I had a great experience. I knew after that experience that I didn't want to be in construction, but that I wanted to work for DelDOT. And I was fortunate enough to get offered a full-time opportunity the spring of my senior year and decided to take them up on it. So I started out actually in the division of planning, doing concept designs and things of that nature. The department had a reorganization in 2002. And so I moved to the new Division of Transportation Solutions, which was more the project development side of the house. So did that for a while, moved on to the Division of Maintenance and Operations, worked there for a couple of years. And that's when I came in contact with our then Cabinet Secretary, Shailen Bhatt, during a hurricane situation. And a few months later, he kind of called out of the blue, asked me to come to his office and asked me to lead the performance management initiative for the department. So that was something new to me. I was a little apprehensive about it and didn't know exactly why he wanted me to do that, but tested it out and really liked it. And so I worked in the office of secretary for a little while, went back to Transportation Solutions, worked as a deputy there, and was fortunate enough to be selected as chief engineer in 2019. Did that for about a year, and then our cabinet secretary at the time decided to retire. And so our deputy secretary was nominated to be secretary, and when she and I chatted, I said, well, I haven't really gotten to do all the things I wanted to do as chief engineer because I've only been doing it for a year, because she wanted me to be the deputy. And she said, oh, well, you can do both. And it's like, okay, great. Okay. That's the best of both worlds for me. So under that role, so as chief engineer, I'm overseeing all of the capital program that we have at the department. We have about 450 staff in my division that work on project delivery, whether it be the design teams, traffic management, environmental, right-of-way, utilities, all the components of project development. So I do that piece of the work. And then as deputy secretary, focused on policy, so work on legislation within our state, work on constituent relations with legislators. So any project questions that they have, fielding those, getting those out to my team and getting them responses. And then also get to work a lot on the national transportation front through AASHTO and other organizations. So a variety of opportunities to lead in different spaces.
Extraordinary. And of course, at a time when we have a historic investment in infrastructure all over the country, and I'm sure that's adding a few levels of challenge to your enterprise and your personal responsibility for it.
It certainly is, trying to deliver on all of the new infrastructure funding and programs. Working with the team, we actually created a new division, Transportation Resiliency and Sustainability, to oversee a lot of the, protect funds, resiliency funds, all of those aspects. Delaware is the lowest lying state in the nation, and so we face a lot of challenges in that space. And so we're excited to have the opportunity from the federal side with funding to be able to have this division that's really focused on that.
That's fascinating. And the objectives of that division are not only to implement, IIJA, but it will clearly impact behavior, operational priorities at a time, and in an area that is, critically important, and more so, and the general public is beginning to really embrace that. And I've been amazed at the level of commitment that industry has brought, and a serious commitment, and one based on their realization that it's good for America and it's good for business.
Yes.
So that's brilliant. That's a very interesting initiative. And one of the contributing factors to, from a solution standpoint, is clearly becoming technology.
Yes.
And one of the specific technology initiatives that we wanted to speak with you about, because of the leadership role that DelDOT has been playing, really nationally, is called e-ticketing.
Yes.
And to most people, I have to confess, I mean, I've spent years as a deputy commissioner of a state DOT, and obviously my years at Federal Highway, and I have to confess I didn't know a whole lot about it. As a policy person, not an engineer, I didn't have a lot of exposure to it. And I just became fascinated with the ability to transform this, rather discrete part of the project delivery continuum and the impact it could have. Clearly, DelDOT saw that very early on, because you're clearly one of the leading states in the country in terms of implementation. So can you just talk about e-ticketing as sort of this discrete element?
Sure.
Obviously, the Everyday Counts 6 initiative has highlighted e-ticketing. And by the way, the 43 states have adopted the initiative, which is a Everyday Counts record, which is near and dear to my heart. Can you just give us a sense of kind of where that initiative, the impetus for it, and how it sort of came about?
Sure, happy to. It's funny, I talked about being an intern for DelDOT and working in construction. So I very vividly remember being out on a paving project, 4th of July weekend in 1999, and it being high 90s, low 100-degree temperatures, and we're paving, and I was tasked with collecting every ticket from every hot mix truck that delivered asphalt to the project.
You lived it.
I remember that. And so, we've been doing, our paving operations that way for a really long time. And e-ticketing really kind of revolutionizes that and says, we're not going to, have a driver deliver this paper ticket that they're giving to the inspector that hopefully makes it into, the proper place for payment, for tracking information. Now we can kind of automatically transfer that information. We have all of the information about that load of hot mix, know the time that it was, put on that truck, know the exact tonnage, have all of that information. And really, materials are so important to our projects in terms of the longevity. And we can go back and see, okay, did we have an issue, with a load of hot mix that was there, and that's why this pavement is, failing a little prematurely. So having all of that data in a system approach, it provides efficiencies on so many different levels, whether it be the person that had been collecting those tickets, all the way down to kind of the asset management that the department is involved in. And so it really is going to revolutionize how we do business in that space.
Well, as a part of our role with the National E-Ticketing Task Force, we produced we call them InfoDocs. They're basically documentary style, and only about a 7-minute piece. And in that, I was part of the folks that were interviewed, just trying to help articulate and explain what e-ticketing meant and what it was, what it meant, and what it could be. And in that conversation, I said something to the effect that paper tickets are where data go to die. And then our brilliant videographer, when he was, collecting content for the piece, there was this in the producer of the plant that we were using, who were so kind and so effective in helping us understand it. They had 4 or 5 of these freight containers sitting in this sort of back part of the lot, and there was a drone shot coming in and a picture of these 4 or 5 freight containers. Opened the door and they're loaded 10 high with boxes of tickets. Mm-hmm. And they zoomed in on the box and it said, "Destroy 2025." So literally, the
Right.
visual manifestation of where data go to die, and transform to a digital-based system for the entire supply chain delivery system in our industry. And the benefits are staggering, from the data that you're now going to have to utilize probably for applications we don't even yet know,
Right.
but certainly in asset management, and the efficiencies that it brings to the operational considerations for both the owner and the contractor
Correct.
and the producer. So, I mean, we've been so impressed with the commitment and support of National Asphalt Paving Association, the Ready Mix
Yes.
Association, the aggregate industry. It's really a terrific example of collaboration and all of us seeing the benefit. And as a result, I've been prognosticating that I think in 2 to 3 years it'll become standard operating
Right.
procedure, which is lightning speed
Yes.
for technology in our industry.
Yes.
So with that sort of backdrop,
Sure.
how's your experience been with the relationship with the industry
Yes.
at all levels, and how important was that collaboration in getting you where you are today?
Yes. So in Delaware, we call it the Delaware way.
I like
How
that.
we kind of collaborate across different spaces. And so it's very important for us to get buy-in whenever we, DelDOT, are going to do anything that is a small change or large changes to how everyone does business. And so working with the Delaware Contractors Association and making sure they knew what we were trying to do, piloting it with them, working with the Delaware Asphalt Paving Association, DAPA, and talking through it with them. We don't do anything here without kind of having that consensus. And we do a lot of piloting because that's a great way to learn.
It is.
And a great way to maybe innovate in a less scary space, because we're not fully committing to something. Hey, we're going to try this. We're going to see how it works. And if it works and we can, truly show the benefits, then we're going to move forward. And so we 100% collaborated early on and often, and happy to say that on the asphalt side of the house, we're full bore. And now we're starting to look at concrete. And so for us, it's been a great process, a great learning process. We're also changing how we do, all of our construction documentation, so e-construction. So we, the program that we're using for that, e-ticketing, is being folded into all of that. And it's just helping us be more efficient, having all the information in one space, helping us, you talk about industry, being able to pay for that asphalt that got delivered. It's all going directly into our system and being part of our monthly cost estimate process that happens. And so it's been a really good experience for our department.
In the info doc I mentioned, it was clear in terms of something as simple as billing that one of the testimonials from one of the private sector players was the weeks it took often to get to the
Sure.
point where they could bill. And that's, from a private sector side, that's critical. If you're billing efficiently out of the gate, as opposed to waiting 2 or 3 weeks for the tickets to catch up,
Yep.
it's an extraordinary advantage to the industry side. And I imagine the efficiencies garner a significant benefit to the owners. You have a much better handle on what's going on out
Yes.
there. So, and that collaboration clearly was essential in getting you where you are today. One of the other elements of this issue that have come up, and not strictly related to e-ticketing, but sort of the BIM for infrastructure movement, digital as-built, the whole evolution toward digitizing the project
Yes.
delivery system, which is what I'm particularly excited about. I mean, Every Day Counts in its origin was all about how we deliver projects more efficiently and
Yes.
effectively. And so clearly, and 2010 was the first initiative. It was on 3D modeling. And that's when I first began to really educate myself about it and the extraordinary
Yes.
potential that had. Fast forward, 3 initiatives over 6 years, collaborating with states. And then, of course, the current initiative, EDC 6. So there's been a real investment of time and effort by states and federal highway. You mentioned the nominee for the Federal Highway Administrator, Shaylin Batt, an old friend and colleague of mine. And talk to me about the role of Federal Highway and the extent to which that collaboration has also contributed to your success. And again, you're sort of ahead of the game, but EDC6 was clearly part of your journey. So
Yes.
Give you a sense of how important it is that Federal Highway has established such a leadership role.
Yes, definitely. I think, to your point, every day does count. We're doing projects that are safety driven, that are capacity driven, multimodal, and the quicker that we can get things done and the more efficient that we can be and the more information we know about our system just helps us deliver faster. And so, having the focus through EDC is really important. Having the STIC innovation funds that I believe we did use some for e-ticketing in Delaware. And so having that collaboration and really that support from a funding resource and also being able to connect to other states throughout the nation to see what they're doing has been really important for us. We value our partnership with Federal Highways, both our local office as well as the resources at the headquarters level in this space. But yes, definitely collaborated with our local division office about what we were doing, how we were going to do it. They had a lot of good input and feedback, again, as we were collaborating with the industry as well.
Terrific. I want to sort of shift gears a little bit and talk to you about workforce and challenges that every DOT in the country is facing, every contractor in the country,
Yes.
every producer. And, we have this sort of generational shift going on. The baby boomers, and particularly in the civil engineering sector, are rapidly retiring. Yes. And that's creating a host of challenges for everyone involved in this industry. So if you're a 25-year-old and you're looking for a career opportunity, how do you leverage this commitment to technology, or are you leveraging this commitment to technology as part of an effort to recruit and retain that critical workforce coming up? And of course, within the civil engineering community, we're not producing as many engineers as
Right.
we have retiring, so that creates a whole other set of challenges. So just
Yes.
generally, are you leveraging technology as part of your recruitment and retention efforts?
Certainly. So we are doing all that we can to recruit and retain staff, and innovation is a big part of that. If you tell a millennial that you're going to go and stand by a truck and grab a ticket, and then you're going to take these tickets and do all these things with them, they're looking at you like you're crazy because it seems like a waste of time.
So antiquated.
And that there are better ways to do things. And so, I think having a culture of innovation at the department has helped us. We have a great internship program for both high school and college students to let them know about different, facets of transportation. We have several that are interning either in maintenance or construction, out on those road type projects. So they're seeing the benefits of some of these innovations that we've been implementing. But yes, it's really important, not only for recruitment and retention, but again, just for being more efficient, spending our dollars wisely. And so it's, things like e-ticketing are very helpful in that space. But yes, we are very similar to a lot of other DOTs and private sector in terms of having, higher vacancy rates than usual. And so doing all that we can to show, that we are a place that innovates, that we're open to new ideas, and that we, are putting our money where our mouth is and really investing in these different innovations. And in Delaware, it's really great. We're such a small state that we're able to innovate pretty quickly. And we're okay with even failing sometimes, as long as you're learning from that and pivoting to something new. And so it's been, it's helpful for us because we have a smaller group of people to, have to gain consensus with and can pilot things very easily.
My philosophy, if you would, as we were back in the time that I served with Victor Mendez, it was, our philosophy was top down, bottom up, meaning you needed the buy-in and the leadership of the top levels of an agency, but you couldn't do it without the frontline troops engaging, getting their buy-in,
Yes.
and making their level of commitment. And that's sort of the secret sauce to advancing innovation. You're obviously a big part of that leadership solution, but I assume Secretary Majeski is also. So it's important for your top leadership, including the Secretary, to be that committed. So the sort of general commitment to advancing technology, is that something that was, a commitment made at the top, influencing the frontline troops, or did the ideas and the impetus and the commitment emanate from those folks on the front line, those technical experts, those unsung heroes often, I call them champions of change, that are so critical to the success of advancing innovation. So
sure.
Talk a little bit about kind of what came first, the chicken or the egg.
So I think it's both.
Yeah.
I mean, when you talk specifically about e-ticketing, it definitely was an idea generated by really our construction folks and saying like, hey, we want to try this, and having the space from a leadership standpoint to be like, yep, let's go ahead. Let's see what funding we can allocate. And then sometimes we'll go to different, conferences, national events and hear something and say like, hey, I heard about this idea. Are we doing this? And if we're not doing this, who can be the champion for it? Yep. And so I think it comes from both directions really. But we are committed from, Secretary Majeski on down to, putting funding towards it, putting time and effort. It takes time and resources to be able to innovate. And so giving folks the space to be able to do that, bringing on resources when we need to. But yes, I think we've, over the last decade or more have really focused on having a culture of innovation and, through doing innovation fairs, and we have an innovation station that we had online where people could submit ideas, really being open. I think leadership needs to be open to that and be supportive. But a lot of those ideas really come from staff who are in the field doing it, doing the work day by day and saying like, hey, can we, do this in a different manner? A
good way to sum it up, there is a quote I read in a story in the Federal Highways, The Innovator, their innovation publication. And the quote was, putting consistent, clear information at our field personnel's fingertips is a benefit. Using the data that these systems collect in an intelligent way is what we see as the ultimate goal. And the quote was from Billy Sweeney, DelDOT's Project Controls Coordinator. So what you just described is exactly sort of the view from the front lines that I read and I was quite impressed with. And the story as a whole was pretty good. So if we sort of look at the broader technology objectives, the whole BIM for infrastructure movement, digital as-built, is that also an area that DelDOT is pursuing and committed to evolving? Yes,
definitely. So we've put together over the last year or so a digital delivery team to really start looking through all of, there's a wide swath of things that you can be working on, and you kind of have to take them off in bites. And so our team is kind of understanding what other states are doing, what technology is available, trying to figure out how that ties into what we do. And I think the greater emphasis on asset management is really the key to all of that, is that at the end of the day, you want to know exactly what you have, and, having digital as-built, delivering your projects digitally to the contractors, all of that ties into having that information so that the next time we have something that we know all of the information up front. Right. And so yes, we are making a concerted effort, don't have any specific, time frame goals on when we want to be fully digital, but, going through using kind of a stepwise approach to getting there.
But you're already doing it. You're already preparing that groundwork.
We are.
About a year ago, Federal Highway published basically a BIM for infrastructure roadmap. And it was very well researched, very well written, very well done. But the conclusion, basically based on their measure of the current state of practice and models that they utilized to provide that estimate, they were estimating 10 years before we achieve state of practice. And one of our missions is to accelerate that, very much like what sort of the everyday counts sort of objective. So so I've looked at that, and we coined the hashtag We Can Do Better, because I don't think it's appropriate to be critical of that conclusion. it was a very well-researched document that reached a conclusion that was based on objective analysis. But I've talked to several federal highway officials about that very subject, including people who had been directly involved in doing the study. My question to them was, can we do better?
Right.
And it comes down to only if state DOTs, talk about the front lines of something, make the level of commitment necessary to do it. And it's a combination of resources, but more importantly, the focus and priority.
Right.
Because you've got 100 priorities a week you've got to juggle, and crises every other week that you got to deal with. So DOTs have this massive, set of responsibilities, as you know better than most. So our goal is to just keep asking that question and keep looking at opportunities to do better.
Yes.
And your sense of what more it will take. I think the reality is there are a bunch of states who are really committed to this and really investing time and effort and innovation. And other states, not as much. But like in our business, and one of the great values of AASHTO is that opportunity to collaborate with each other, to learn from each other. And as states advance and move more effectively toward that goal, I think it's quite possible to certainly get there before 10 years. And when you look at some estimates, 15 to 20% savings off the cost of projects, if you have a standard comprehensive approach to digital delivery.
Sure.
So your thoughts?
Yeah, so I think, again, for us, collaboration is important. So our first, I would say, kind of major step into digital delivery is very recently, within the last few months, we've started releasing our 3D models for projects that we have 3D models for, because we don't have them for every project, but releasing those as part of the bid documents. So previously, you didn't get those until you were the successful bidder. And we heard from the contracting community that it would be helpful to have that information during bidding, because they were basically taking our plans and putting it into whatever system to do some of their, estimating. And so we took that first step. There's a lot of pieces to that, a lot of hesitation sometimes from staff saying, well, then I feel like it has to be 100% perfect. And is it going to take me longer to design to make sure that I've, dotted every I and crossed every T? And so trying to get people over that fear. And then also, understanding kind of when you shift to, say, the digital, as-built, what technology are we going to use? All the contractors have, different resources. And is there going to be a cost to them that they're not willing to take on? And so it takes time, I think, to have those conversations. And then, anytime you're trying to kind of standardize a process, it's getting that consensus around.
Yeah.
What exactly is it? How are we going to do X, Y, or Z, especially if there's 5 ways to do it? And so I think that's really the timing piece. I think we all buy into the end result is going to be great, but making sure you do it well, going along that path. And then again, especially with our contracting community, making sure that we are, communicating and collaborating and understanding their needs is really important to making sure that it's successful in the end.
So important. Well said. Last sort of, part of the conversation I wanted to raise is, in addition to everything we've just discussed in your role here at DelDOT, you're also chair of the AASHTO Innovation Initiative, which has been around a long time and has really evolved, and I think is playing an increasingly important role in helping states really drive innovation. Can you sort of talk about that role and maybe one or two of the priorities and what you're most excited about in terms of where the initiative is going?
Yes, happy to. So I became chair, it's 2022 right now.
Yep.
It's always hard to remember.
In the middle of COVID.
Yes, in the middle of COVID. I was asked to chair the Innovation Initiative. And so my co-chairs are Dara Wheeler from California and Rog McDaniels from Utah. And so they are amazing. We have a great team. We're all, kind of learning together about the history of AII and really having that forward-looking, perspective of what do we want it to be. And so AII basically has funding every year to select about 2 what we call focus technologies and 2 or 3 additionally selected technologies. And the whole goal is really to provide almost like a marketing kit, if you will, for these innovations so that state DOTs understand what they are, understand the benefits, how to roll them out, if there were any challenges, et cetera. And so there, 4 or 5 are selected each year to get kind of that whole package. It can be peer exchanges, conferences, websites, you name it, to just get the information out about great work that states are doing and how they're innovating in different spaces. And so I think the biggest thing I'll touch on that we're excited about is developing this national innovation platform where you basically have a database of all the innovations that states are doing, a great resource to all the state DOTs and others. And so we're working with a variety of different entities to make that a reality. And with that, trying to figure out what AII looks like once we have something like that. Because right now, again, we're able to highlight 4 or 5, innovations, and we're getting, 40 or 50 submitted. And so there are ones that aren't even getting attention. And so this innovation platform would be a way for us to even get more information on innovations that are happening within state DOTs. And, it would be searchable by different, keywords, different, is it a construction thing? Is it a safety thing? Is it maintenance? And so we're really excited to be part of that process of developing that because we really think that's going to help kind of transform how states are able to innovate and how they're able to get information about different innovations.
One of the great challenges for innovators is engaging with state DOTs at a level where they're able to advance those innovations in a commercial sense. Mm-hmm. And one of the great challenges under the I call it the Federal Aid Highway Program system, which is 52 individual DOTs, and under federal law, the Federal Aid Highway Program is described as state administered, federally assisted.
Yes.
And that's a policy framework that goes back decades. So the decision as to what innovations to use, what contracting methods to employ, all of those things are clearly made at the state level with federal guidance and oversight, but principally those decisions are made. So you literally have to go door to door to 52 DOTs who have 52 ways of assessing these things. In one state, it might be a manufacturer getting a manufacturing certification for a project. In another state, it's getting on their products list. And NETPEP and AASHTO, there's an infrastructure to do that. And I remember one of the first things I did after I retired from government, and at the time, Federal Highway Administrator, was proprietary products. And an effort that one of the trade organizations, ARTPA, led an effort to repeal, and they did successfully. So you basically had a clean slate and an opportunity to really do a better job at, is there a what you just described sort of got me thinking about it as sort of a national clearinghouse platform where innovators can come and go through the due diligence, and that's basically what NETPEP does. And I think there's an issue. I think there's the possibility of expanding that role and providing is really a resource question. So my advocacy and I told the folks when I decided to support the repeal, on the condition that we're all committed to working with AASHTO going forward. They have an infrastructure, they have a system, but perhaps financial support from industry, as opposed to paying for the process and the services of NETPEP, but a bigger commitment so that we have the capacity to do more and faster. So that's not so much a question as true confessions from my standpoint. But do you think we can do better, particularly in what you're describing as sort of the objectives of AII, and it sounds like a very similar strategic objective. So it'd be great if we could sort of expand that and really get industry involved, because it's a resource question, I think, to some degree. Your thoughts?
We can always do better. There's always room for improvement.
Put a hashtag in front of that.
And I think that the collaboration is important. Sometimes it makes sense to combine efforts and sometimes it doesn't. So I think further discussions on that would be interesting. But yeah, I think, we owe it to, folks that use transportation to do all that we can to, make things better. And better means different things, in different spaces. But I think we're all committed to innovating and making a difference so that people can get where they need to go in the best way possible.
And with the level of investment that the Biden administration and Congress have made possible, and in 4 years closer,
yes.
We're going to be doing it again. And a lot of confidence that we need to make a similar investment. This was not quite a down payment. I give it a lot more credit than that. But it was a significant investment that has to be replicated in 5 years. So the extent to which we can demonstrate to the public and to Congress that we have done, we have executed innovation. We meaning the big we, the industry, obviously the owners. The more we can demonstrate that commitment and that these technologies, these innovations, these systems are reducing cost and getting more bang for their buck is always a critical, important factor. So leaders like you that are making it happen in state DOTs it's ground zero of an effort to really impress everyone involved that these investments are going to go as further than they can in the historical perspective.
Right.
So DelDOT is leading, and a lot of other states are as well. And I think this is a real turning point for technology and what we do.
Yes.
So, and again, the big we.
Yes, yes. And I would be remiss if I didn't say it's our team that does all of this. From the person that's out in the field to those who are in the office, all the way up to leadership, we all play a role in making sure that we deliver on those commitments to infrastructure. And so it's exciting to be in this time and have the resources to be able to do what we need to do to make a difference. But it's definitely a huge team effort here.
And I know from my own experience that effort is only successful if the leadership is open to it and that collaboration with your own team makes it possible. So congratulations on being that leadership team or part of that leadership team that makes it happen. But it's important to underscore what you just did. It's the frontline troops who are in the trenches, who are really learning and experiencing what works, what doesn't. And clearly that's I think that's growing, and I think you're seeing an impact of this generational shift in terms of that understanding and commitment to technology as a solution. So the timing, it's just an extraordinary time to be involved in transportation infrastructure and in the context of attracting that workforce we're talking about. I think it's going to be critically important, and everybody's focused on that.
Yes.
And I think technology will be a big part of that solution. Madam Deputy Secretary, thank you so much for taking the time to have this conversation, and please continue and keep up the good work.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thank you for listening to this episode of the InfraTalk Podcast. We hope this discussion inspires you to ask your own questions and encourages you to have discussions with policymakers and your peers. If you want to know more about InfraTalk America, visit us at infratalkamerica.com, follow us on social media at InfraTalk USA, or subscribe to the InfraTalk Podcast on your favorite listening platform to be notified of all new episodes and features. And remember, every innovation starts with a conversation, so let's start talking.